Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a really different way of thinking about anxiety, especially for those of us who are, driven to achieve, but sometimes feel like our own minds are driving us a little crazy. We're going to look at a perspective that completely challenges how we've been taught to deal with all that inner turmoil. So let's just start with a question. Does this feel familiar? This constant, nagging feeling that you're a project that's never quite finished, that you can only really be happy or successful or even just okay once you've fixed all your bugs, the anxiety, the self-doubt, all of it. It's like we're all running this self-improvement software that's constantly telling us we need an update.
And this whole idea of being a fixer-upper traps us in something that feels like a war. A constant, absolutely exhausting war that we fight inside our own heads every single day. We're battling our own thoughts, trying to push down feelings, and trying to get rid of the parts of ourselves we've decided are bad.
Now, the reason we're fighting this war comes down to one core belief we've all been taught. We think the problem is the anxiety, that sadness is the enemy, that fear is some kind of glitch in our system that we need to debug and delete. We point to the feeling itself and say, that's the problem.
But what if that's completely wrong? What if the whole battle is based on a misunderstanding? What if the only real problem is the fight itself? Today we're going to look at a teacher who doesn't offer a new weapon for the war, but instead offers a radical ceasefire for the mind.
So let's meet Yongey Mingyur Rinpoche. This isn't some distant guru on a mountaintop who's above it all. Not at all. In fact, he's actually known as the anxious achiever. Why? Because his incredible wisdom wasn't found in ancient texts alone. It was forged in the fire of his own severe, debilitating panic attacks when he was a young man. He gets it.
Okay, so this is where everything flips. The common wisdom, what we all think, is that our thoughts and feelings, the anxiety, the anger, are the obstacles in our way. But Rinpoche's insight is completely different. He says the thoughts and feelings aren't the obstacle. Our resistance to them, that's the obstacle. The real problem isn't the feeling. It's the fight against the feeling.
So, if we stop fighting, then what? Do we just let the chaos take over? Well, not exactly. The idea here is to basically upgrade to a whole new operating system for your mind, a new OS that isn't built on conflict and control.
And the core of this new OS is something called awareness. Now, the best way to think about it is like this. Awareness is the sky. And your thoughts, your feelings, your anxiety, that's all just the weather. You've got clouds, storms, sunshine. The weather is constantly changing, right? Sometimes it's wild. But the sky itself is never, ever harmed by the storm. Awareness is that vast, open, unbreakable space that can hold all of your inner weather. And the crazy thing is, it's not something you have to get. It's already here.
So, this new operating system works in a few steps. First, you start to see your thoughts and emotions not as problems, but just as natural weather patterns. Second, you realize that suffering doesn't come from the storm, it comes from fighting the storm. And third, the goal, enlightenment, isn't about getting a perfectly clear, sunny sky forever. It's about finally being at peace with whatever weather shows up.
It all kind of boils down to this surprisingly simple formula. Real freedom, liberation from that inner war, equals your awareness, that spacious sky, multiplied by unconditional allowance. And what's unconditional allowance? It's just giving whatever you're feeling permission to be there, without a fight.
Now, I know you might be thinking, this all sounds very nice, philosophically. But Rinpoche didn't just come up with this in a quiet room. He stress-tested this idea in the real world, in the middle of his own personal chaos, when he felt like he was completely falling apart. Get this, when he was having these absolutely terrifying panic attacks, he did the exact opposite of what every instinct in our body tells us to do. Instead of trying to meditate to escape the panic or calm himself down, he turned toward it. He made the raw, visceral feeling of panic the very focus of his meditation. He literally walked right into the fire.
And this really gets to the core of it all. As he says here, if this whole idea of awareness can't help you in your darkest, most painful moments, well, then it's useless. It's just a nice decoration. For this to be real, it has to work when we need it most.
Okay, turning toward a panic attack sounds pretty intense, right? So how does this actually apply to our busy modern lives? Well, the great news is Rinpoche makes it super accessible. You don't need to go on a long retreat or do anything complicated.
In fact, he suggests something he calls low energy mode for when you're starting out. And it is this simple. The next time a difficult emotion pops up, anxiety, irritation, whatever, just pause for 3 seconds. Before you do anything, before you judge it, before you try to fix it, just let it be there. For 3 seconds. That's it. That's the whole practice.
And you see what happens when you do this? The goal completely changes. You're no longer playing that endless, exhausting game of self-improvement, trying to achieve some perfect, anxiety-free version of yourself. The new goal is simply to stop the war. The goal is inner peace, not personal perfection.
So who is this approach really for? It's a game changer for anyone who's highly sensitive, anxious, super self-critical, or just tired of trying hard all the time. But, and this is really important, there are some risks. Allowing a feeling isn't the same as indulging a bad habit. And being gentle with yourself isn't an excuse to duck your responsibilities. It's a subtle but crucial difference.
And this brings us to what might be the most liberating idea of all. No matter what storms pass through your mind, your core self, that spacious, clear awareness is never damaged. It's never broken. Even if you feel anxious every day for the rest of your life, that awareness remains whole and complete. Your worth is not tied to your mental state. So we're left with this final, kind of mind-bending thought. We're all taught that we'll find clarity and peace by getting rid of all our messy, unwanted thoughts. But what if the exact opposite is true? What if you find your true, original mind not by rejecting anything, but by finally having the courage to welcome everything home?